All right, so I'm Melissa Kazina. I'm going to talk about reading the Academy, learning how to read it. Being back here as a grad student, and I've always thought that was really ironic. When I graduated from here, I wanted to go into folklore because I was interested in sociology. I was interested in telling stories. After I got to Louisiana and I began my program in folklore, I learned that the headquarters of the Folklore Society is located right here at The Ohio State University. Had no idea. I had no idea that I had a distinguished program in rhetoric. Basically, when I entered graduate school, I started learning the language of the academy, which I was entirely unaware of as an undergraduate. And despite the fact that I knew that I wanted to go to grad school, I didn't know what that really meant. So when I got into the master's, I started to acquire the vernacular of higher education. I remember sitting in my first departmental meeting. They were talking about adjuncts, and I wrote that word down as something that I needed to find out what that was. Because they were like, and here's the new adjuncts. I'm like, what's an adjunct? What's entering the master's program, I had no clue about the structure of the academy. It amazed me that the people who are writing the books that we read are the people that we're taking classes from in graduate school. I had no idea that the field was so, I guess, small. You have that core group of people, and I had no idea who they were, but more so, I also didn't know how the academy operated. Nothing about the tenure system. I mean, okay, so let me move on here.
So you kind of now understood that the same professors who were teaching also writing and doing the research.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I also understood sort of how you advanced in the profession. Because before I didn't know any of that. And so, and I also started getting a feel for like the discourse of the field and sort of the politics involved. So it's kind of not just reading, how the field works, but also reading how the field works. Do you know what I'm saying? Like how politics factor in. And I just started getting a taste of that in Louisiana. And when I got to the PhD program, it's like I started learning a whole new language again. And it was really through learning about the history of the academy and like how rhetoric and composition came to acquire the identity that it has now. And also, I took a class in writing program administration from Louise Weatherby Phelps. And I would say that what I learned in that class kind of was a literacy in and of itself. Because learning all the different channels that you have to work through when you want to get something accomplished. You have to talk to the department chair. They have to answer to the dean. Then there's provosts, chancellors, how budgets have been structured, what limitations there are as an administrator. Kind of just learning the infrastructure of the university was to me an entirely new set of literate practices, because attending this university as an undergraduate, you wouldn't know any of that.
Yeah.
You don't know any of that. I mean, maybe some people do, but I sure as hell didn't. And people don't realize the literacy that needs to be taught is, well, I don't want to be making prescriptions or anything, but I feel like knowing the infrastructural history and sort of the way that things have come to be the way they are is so important for learning how to read things in the context that they presently exist in.
Exactly, yeah. So, one thing I was wondering about was, like, how do you make that switch from folklore to rhetoric and then again into the administrative aspect of it? How did you connect that as you went through and navigated through all those?
I was an English major. But I always was like more drawn to like the cultural and the practical. That's why I liked folklore. And I liked sociology, but I wanted to stay in the humanities. So sociology and English kind of like comes together in folklore.
When you bring in people there.
Yeah, and they're like, histories and stuff, and their cultural practices. But then I started teaching composition. So the old conversion narrative thing where I was like, oh my, eureka, composition.
Yes.
And so I started getting really interested in rhetoric and composition, and plus
the culture part as well, right?
Exactly.
Like the community aspect, the administrative and politics aspect.
Well, that is a recent fascination
Oh, okay.
based on the new knowledge that I've gained reading all this stuff.